We went back, huh?
Yeah, that sucked.
Starting to feel like week 2, huh?
That sucked. That was.
Woo. Hey, man, at least we didn't have to go to Charlotte today.
Thank God for moving on my part. Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Ready? Let's huddle up.
Let's just do it, okay?
For Panthers Playbook, driven by Carolina Ford Dealers. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Just go ahead, leave your thoughts in the comment section on this 30-14. I almost said something I can't say on air, so you know what?
Butt whooping.
Just leave your... Sure, we'll go with that one. But leave your thoughts in the comment section as you're doing that. By the way, folks, Carolina Ford Dealers are our sponsor of Panthers Playbook. With a Ford F-150 on your team, it's game on. See your Carolina Ford Dealers today. Man, Chris, I'm not going to lie. The opening drive for the Panthers, the way they were moving the ball, I was like, okay, methodical drive, marching right down the field. And then once Bryce had the turnover, the offense just fell apart. Everything just fell apart offensively, it felt like, for them. And then the defense obviously just couldn't stop the run. That's just, copy paste from week to week, I feel like. But once that first turnover took place, the offense just, like, what happened, guys? You guys were moving the ball perfectly on that first drive that you had.
I've been saying it. I tweeted it a couple times today. Carolina Panthers are not good enough to overcome turnovers, right? So to win any games, and we thought that they would win this game, we need to stop going with the Panthers when we think they're going to win. I'm done for the season when it comes to that. But even with that, like, it was more so based off of how they have taken care of the ball and how they've ran the ball and how the defense has stepped up in certain situations. And you have a Dallas team that basically was reeling before coming into this. And this was kind of like how a lot of people treat their games at Bank of America Stadium. It was a get-right game for them.
Yeah.
And you have 4 turnovers for the Carolina Panthers, 1 for the Dallas Cowboys. And as you said, it started off looking like it was going to be really good. Keep the ball in your hands, keep the ball out of the hands of the Cowboys, keep your defense fresh. It felt like that was going to be the game plan. Running the ball was heavy. And then, of course, after the 1 turnover, Dave Canales goes away from the run. The offense doesn't do well. The offense really only moved the ball on that drive, the first drive of the game, the 83-yard touchdown drive, a little bit at the end as it was garbage time.
Yeah.
But other than that, really the bulk of their yards, it was 83, then 72. So quick math, that's 155 out of the 135. So that was on 2 drives, the first drive and the touchdown drive. The rest of the game, there's 80 yards.
Yeah.
It's just not good enough.
No.
And it regressed back to bad Bryce. So
yeah, if you look after the first drive, 3 plays punt, 5 plays interception, 3 plays punt. You had the 1 touchdown to 83 yards to Jalen Coker, which you actually took advantage of the Dallas turnover that they had. That was like the one saving grace for the offense in the first half was that 1 play. But then in the second half, you start very first play, fumble when Bryce Young gets sacked. Just didn't hold on to the football. 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt. And then you had that 12-play, 70-yard touchdown drive. And then you had a bad interception to end things off as well. I mean, it just... I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. When we thought this team was making progress, right? Making progress and moving. I don't know. This team as a whole, because it was like, oh, well, they played the Chiefs close. Hey, they actually played the Bucks close. Teams that are looking to go to the playoffs. In this case, obviously the Chiefs are going to go. Bucks are probably going to win the NFC South. And then last week, another close game against the Eagles. And then all of a sudden this pops up. It's like, yo, you can't be close against good teams and then look terrible against a not very good one. Like that, you can't play to the level of your competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you have to continue to play at that high level every single week. And that's the growing pains of a young team, I guess. I don't know, but man, it was frustrating to watch. All the penalties, the offensive line was not good today either. It was just bad. And they got gashed over 200 yards on the ground defensively. Like what are we doing here?
Just like us, I guess, like we drink the Kool-Aid a little bit. Maybe the team is drinking their own Kool-Aid.
Maybe
and they they felt a certain type of way about themselves going in. So, and they still have to really work for it. Like, this isn't a team that can just kind of roll out there and come from, a week of preparation and just do whatever, just kind of roll out there and win. No, like you really have to work for your wins. This roster, this team isn't there yet to where anything is a given for them. And I wouldn't say that anything in the NFL is a given.
It's not.
But it's just, you're not one of those top tier teams going against a bottom rung team that you can just do your normal thing and kind of go out there. Like, no, you really have to make sure everything is perfect. That starts with taking care of the ball. And that's one of the reasons why, even though Bryce Young has looked amazing over the last few weeks, I haven't gone out there to just jump out and say, I was wrong about what I said earlier this year, because we knew that there are certain things we hadn't seen yet, at least for me. I needed to see him under duress a little bit more.
Yeah.
And look, I'm going to say this. I think Bryce Young is the quarterback of the future. I think he proved me wrong on that part of it, right? But the future, meaning next year, the fourth year, maybe pick up a fifth-year option, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say that this is what the Panthers are going to be doing for the next 10 years. I'm just not ready to do that yet.
Yeah,
but I think he's shown us enough to show that, okay, you can give him some time. If you put some pieces around him, everything around him has to be perfect for him to be that guy for you. And so until the Panthers have it perfect around him, we got to expect a few of these games to come up. And these games are going to rear their ugly head every once in a while.
Yeah, that's a conversation we can have at a later time about, okay, is he going to be a starter next year or franchise guy? Like, those are two different things, because you look at, what's available for you even next year at quarterback if you decide to go away from Bryce Young. Again, that's a separate conversation for another time. But to me, it was just the response, or the lack of response after the initial turnover on that first drive by Carolina. It's just, Bryce put a heck of a spin move on, you just put a spin move on Micah Parsons. I was like, okay, you are feeling it right now. In fact, you put a spin move on Micah Parsons like that, but you didn't protect the football going down to the ground.
And then fumble the ball.
And then the fumble goes away. And then again, it's the response after that, not just by him, but the team as a whole. Again, it just fell apart. On that second drive, you had 3rd and 5, and then you have Cade Mays kind of half going backwards with the false start as a center. I thought he had a rough day today, did Cade Mays. But he has the false start. Whole offensive line. And then all of a sudden, now you're at 3rd and 10. So, you put yourself in a disadvantageous position when you're at 3rd and 5. And then sure enough, you don't pick up the first down, you got a punt. You can see sometimes where this team they use as a crutch. Hey, you know what? 3rd and gotta have it, or 4th and gotta have it. Where's Bryce Young go? He goes to Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, on that first interception that he threw, he was locked on 3rd and gotta have it, locked on Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
Defense knew it. Ball pops up. Greg Olsen did a great job on the broadcast pointing it out. He's like, this guy's covered. This guy's covered. Jadeveon Sanders is open right here. You have to hit that guy. You can't lock in on one dude. Other teams pick up on that too. You can't just continue to use one person as a crutch. It's all right, safety valve, and just automatically going to go there. That reared its ugly head, I thought, today as well, especially on that last interception that he threw. Ooh.
Pretty much everything that we've said has been bad about the team. The run defense is just not there. And you know what? I felt we're not there to talk to guys in the locker room. And a lot of times you'll hear, people have to do their assignments and fill their gaps, whatever. I felt like there was a lot of great gap integrity. Just bad tackling. It just felt like guys were you could see it clearly to me on television where guys were hitting their gaps, but they would just fall off of Rico Dowdle and he just will keep going. Mm-hmm. And that was a problem, honestly. And it's one thing to fill the gaps, another thing to complete the tackle, or at least make it easy for somebody else to get the tackle if you can. And none of that happened on defense. I felt like after the first turnover of the game, Dave Canales went away from the run, and then the game kind of became what the game was. And then all of a sudden now you're chasing. And that's another thing. And by the way, for the couple of carries Mike Boone had, I thought he looked pretty good. Probably
get a couple strong ones
carries than what he had. And then, just what you mentioned about Bryce Young. And now I'm starting to wonder, like, how often are we going to have to talk about Bryce Young's confidence? And when does that rear its ugly head? Because late in the game, I felt like he was starting to miss guys who were wide open. He had Jadeveon Sanders out maybe I think it was only like 5 yards away or something, and he like just overthrows him. Nobody's around him. He just sails it over his head. Or where, just other like parts of the game where you had guys where, you could have hit him, but you're just throwing it way too high. And that's not the Bryce Young that we've seen over the last few weeks, when we talked about that swagger and that confidence, that Bama Bryce. This is, last season, early 2024 season Bryce now. And so now, like, you got to look at patterns. To me, I like to look at patterns. And if he's gonna turn the ball over early, like he did against the Saints, first play of the year, if he's gonna turn the ball over early, like he did at the end of the first drive today, if you're gonna give him pressure and he's gonna get hit and doesn't complete a pass off of it, get sacked or whatever ends up happening, Bryce then has a hard time focusing in on what he needs to do, and he starts panicking. And so, listen, again, I think he's the starter for next year. Don't go after another quarterback in the draft. Do something else in the first round. Don't go after somebody in free agency or anything like that. However, we need to pay attention to these patterns, because these patterns are there. And, his great play over the last few weeks doesn't just erase the things that we saw earlier this season.
Oh yeah. Can't forget it.
It happened.
It just my final point on this one, when it pertains to Bryce, it just felt like a lot of the balls when they're coming out of his hands, like, were fishtailing at the very, like there wasn't like a clean spiral. I don't know if it was just because of the weather. I know it was a little moisture out there in Charlotte, and I don't know if it was exactly that, but it wasn't raining hard or anything. But I don't know. It felt like the ball just didn't have any sort of pop. I mean, I'll go to that final interception that he threw. If he puts it out in front of Thielen, that's probably a touchdown. It's probably a touchdown, and it is well underthrown. Yeah. And it was an easy interception.
I think Greg Olsen also pointed out it was late.
It was late coming out. It was underthrown. Yeah. It was just, I don't know. It was just a bad day. But again, he didn't respond well. He and the team didn't respond well to the early turnover. Let's see how he responds next week and the week after. That's the key thing for me going forward. How do you respond next coming up? And how do the Panthers as a team respond? That's on individual players, but also on the head coach Dave Canales as well. Got to figure this stuff out.
I think the next thing that is just glaring and so obvious, like, I think that I can give the offensive line a little bit of a pass in this game, right? Like, this is the worst I think we've seen them play all year. Yeah, whatever they need to clean up, they can get it cleaned up. We've seen them play excellent football, almost, I would even call it elite. Pass blocking for most of the season.
Oh yeah.
The defense needs serious work in the offseason. Yeah. And look, I don't think we've quite come out and said it. We've kind of hinted around it. I think there needs to be a new scheme, which means a new defensive coordinator. There's a few things that just don't make sense to me when you have somebody like a JC Horn and he has to be locked to one side. So all the Cowboys have to do is just move CD Lamb to another side, and all of a sudden, like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense when you don't scheme your defense in a way to where your best players are going to defend against the offense's best players. That's just one thing that I noticed that I think should definitely change. And it's just I just don't get it. Like, yeah. It's I don't know. I just don't.
And it's amazing how we saw Mike Evans, we saw CeeDee Lamb do it. Let's put our best wide receiver in the slot, because we know the corners aren't going to cover them. Like, for example, CeeDee Lamb, let's get guarded by Jordan Fuller, who's a safety. Let's have one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL being covered by a safety.
Bro, it's crazy. That, like, there's no adjustment, there's no response. I mean, we've seen over the last few weeks that we've just started to add some corner blitzes and some safety blitzes and things like that. But also, and here's another thing too, man. There was a scary moment in the game first half where You have Josie Jewell being checked in the blue tent. Claude and Sherlis has to come out. And then all of a sudden you have John Radigan coming in. And this is one of the things I don't like about the 5-2, 3-4 defense. In that situation, you really only have 2 linebackers. So when one comes out, there was a couple plays, if you go back and look at it, they were bringing in extra DBs just so they can have enough guys on the field once Sherlis and Josie Jewell went down. And so that's also a good time to run, because we're going to block it up front like we normally have. Now we've got big bodies to go against, smaller bodies, and we can just, keep it going in that direction and just kind of block these guys out of the way. I kind of like a defense that will have 3 of those guys, 3 linebackers on the field just roaming, instead of just 2. And in that situation, when you had 2 of the guys hurt and you had 1 guy in there and had to fill out the rest with DBs, it just puts you in a bad situation, man. And
that
it's
it does.
I don't know if I like it. So I just wanted to put that out there. There's a lot that needs to change with defense over this offseason. A lot.
Carolina Ford Dealer, your sponsor for Panthers Playbook with the Ford F150. But easy for me to say, with the Ford F-150 on your team, it's game on. So your Carolina Ford Dealer today.
Did I mention there's a lot that needs to change with the defense?
I don't think it can't be stated enough. We'll see you all on Thursday.
There is a lot that needs to change with this defense. And did I say that before?
I think you did.
Did I mention this?
I think you did.
The defense needs work.